Why is Israel's great friend being laid to rest without some of its closest allies showing up for the final farewell? Is Benjamin Netanyahu staying away because he fears what could unfold after the shocking events in Washington? Is Iran quietly celebrating after the sudden death of one of Israel's most loyal and influential international supporters? Has this funeral become so sensitive that Netanyahu's decision to stay away is raising more questions than answers? Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly weighing his options over attending the funeral of late U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham in the United States. According to reports, Netanyahu has set a key condition before deciding whether to attend the funeral of longtime Israel supporter Lindsey Graham. Israeli media outlet N12 reported that Netanyahu wants a formal meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump to be arranged before confirming his visit. Sources told N12 that Netanyahu does not want his trip to Washington to be remembered primarily as a visit centered around Graham's funeral. The Israeli Prime Minister is reportedly concerned that attending only the funeral could reduce his meeting with Trump to a brief courtesy interaction. For more than 2 decades, Lindsey Graham remained one of Israel's strongest advocates and one of its most dependable political allies in Washington. Graham was also a leading supporter of expanding the Abraham Accords to encourage wider normalization between Israel and Arab nations across the region. The senator's sudden death has sent shockwaves through Washington, while deeply unsettling political and security circles across Israel.
This is the truth. He had a way with him. He was a wonderful, wonderful friend, a great American patriot, and a great champion of the Israel-American alliance, and I'll miss him personally a lot. I really thought the world of him. And I think the world has lost a great human being. America has lost a great senator, and we have lost a great friend. He never confused the two. He saw Iran and its proxies for what they are, a danger not only to Israel, but to the entire world, and certainly to America. And he never wavered, he just kept to his convictions and to his values it's almost like, you remember the Superman comics, Truth, Justice, and the American Way? That was Lindsey Graham. And there was no, I don't know if I can use this word, there was no BS. He just was so direct. And if he wanted to tell you something that you may not like, he would just do it. And I valued that. I valued his candor, his honesty, his courage to say things. Yeah, I'm calling it from aid to partnership. So we take away the money that is given to Israel, which is one part, but the other part is we co-invest in equal measures in the new technologies that are needed to give our military and your military the advantage. So there are some unbelievable projects. So we invest jointly and take the fruits equally. You move from aid to partnership, and I think that represents what Israel is. Remember, the other thing is that
I was deeply shocked and heartbroken to learn of the sudden passing of a great American patriot, a true friend of Israel, and a dear friend of mine, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator Graham was a beacon of moral clarity who brought an exceptional sense of justice, truth, and loyalty to his decades of public service. He was a maverick in world affairs and one of Israel's greatest friends and allies in the United States of America. He maintained his steadfast and unwavering support for the people of Israel, especially at our most difficult and painful moments. Lindsey understood the profound importance of the U.S.-Israel partnership and tirelessly advocated for our shared values and shared interests. The people of Israel will always remember and will always cherish his exceptional friendship. On a personal note, Lindsey was a dear friend whom I met with many times, and I will miss him dearly. On behalf of the State of Israel, I send my deepest condolences to Senator Graham's family and friends at this devastating moment. May he rest in peace, and may his memory be a blessing.
Senator Lindsey Graham died suddenly at his Capitol Hill home on July 12, according to a statement released by his Senate office. Preliminary findings indicated that Graham suffered a fatal aortic dissection caused by underlying heart disease, pending a final medical examination. The South Carolina Republican was 71 years old and had represented his state in Congress for nearly 3 decades. His office said a final death certificate would be issued after toxicology testing and the remaining medical examinations were completed. The Washington Post reported that emergency responders attempted to stabilize Graham before he was transported to a nearby hospital. Graham was widely known as one of Washington's leading foreign policy hawks and a strong advocate of continued military support for Ukraine. He died only hours after returning from Kiev, where he had held meetings with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and other senior officials. For more than 2 decades, Graham was also among the US Senate's most outspoken critics of Iran and its regional policies. He consistently supported maximum pressure policies, sweeping sanctions, and a strong military deterrent strategy aimed at countering Iran. Israel's longtime nemesis Iran has, however, repeatedly mocked the death of Lindsey Graham through statements and media coverage. Iran's foreign ministry issued a formal statement on Lindsey Graham's death just hours after posting a cryptic initial reaction, turning what had begun as an ambiguous hint into a clear, hardline denunciation of the late senator's legacy. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai went on record describing Graham's life's work as a dark record, signaling that Tehran sees his decades in Washington as defined by malice and support for policies Iran considers deeply hostile. Iran's foreign ministry said, and I quote, "The angel of death is just." For such an individual, whose entire life's legacy was malice and support for aggression, nothing but a dark record will remain in the minds of people. The death of this hot-headed and sharp-tongued senator will certainly not grieve the heart of any free person. Unquote. The spokesperson further emphasized that no one in Iran would ever mourn Graham's death, underscoring how deeply he is disliked in Tehran and how firmly the regime wants to distance itself from any sense of sympathy.
Definitely our people are not going to say the prayer of loneliness for Lindsey, son of Florence, city in South Carolina, tonight. They are not going to our people and the people of the region and free people around the world. We're mourning clothes for a creature that based a philosophy of his life on aggression, war, violence, and terror, and boasted about being the biggest supporter of genocide and manslaughter in our region. Considering the Memorandum of Understanding's 14 clauses, the Americans have, in this brief period, in one way or another, slaughtered its various components. From the beginning, we also said, commitment in return for commitment. We will continue to fulfill our commitments as long as the other side remains committed to its obligations. We have also demonstrated this in practice. Wherever the other side violated its commitments, we too did not carry out ours.
What began as controversy surrounding Graham's sudden demise has now widened into a much larger geopolitical dispute, with Russia also being drawn into the growing row. Russia has found itself at the center of the storm, as some voices have alleged a possible Kremlin role in Graham's sudden death. Russian opposition leader Igor Eidman has alleged that Kremlin-linked operatives may have been responsible for killing Lindsey Graham. Speaking to Nexta, the Russian opposition figure outlined why he believes Lindsey Graham may have been firmly on Moscow's radar. Argument 1. Graham was one of the strongest American supporters of Ukraine throughout Russia's full-scale invasion. Graham consistently backed tougher sanctions aimed directly at Russia's economy and political leadership. Graham repeatedly pushed for increased U.S. military and financial assistance to Kyiv throughout the conflict. Graham was widely viewed as an influential voice shaping Donald Trump's evolving policy toward Russia. Argument 2. Graham may have been compromised during his recent visit to Ukraine, according to the unverified allegations. He may have been exposed to a slow-acting toxic substance during that visit, the claims further suggest. The allegations also point to the reported use of Russian agent networks operating inside Ukraine. Just 2 days before his sudden death, Graham traveled to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, where he met President Volodymyr Zelensky. On July 10th, the Trump ally sharply criticized Russia and said the White House would support the latest sanctions bill.
I'm pleased to announce, as of about 30 minutes ago, we've reached agreement with the White House on a version of the Russian sanctions bill that they will support. It means it's going to become law. So when I get back to Washington, I'm going to go with Senator Blumenthal to the Republican and Democratic leader to see if we can find time to move this Russian sanctions package that would give tools to President Trump to help end this war. I've never been more optimistic than I am today that we have the formula to end this war. Help Ukraine be more lethal. Let those supporting Russia to know it's going to be a price to be paid if you keep doing it. And to try to find an off-ramp, not to humiliate Putin, but to end this war so that Ukraine will thrive and survive. Great news for Ukraine that we're going to empower the Ukrainian people to make the Patriot, under license from the United States, to protect the skies, which will give tools available to Ukraine they don't have today. A major decision by President Trump that I think over time will pay great dividends. What can we do immediately? It's going to take a while. What can we do immediately? We can, in my view, pass legislation that would require people propping up Putin to have something new to think about. I think President Trump likes a winner, and he sees Ukraine in the camp of being a winner. But you're not going to win this war on the battlefield. But Ukraine is really putting a lot of pressure on Russia. My hope is to end this war through diplomacy. And the more leverage we have over Putin, the better. And so I think what President Trump has seen in Ukraine has impressed him. And we now have a moment in time, if we can increase the lethality of Ukraine by sharing technology with them, and also put the world on notice, help President Trump end the war, stop buying cheap Russian oil and gas, then that's a winning combination.
MAGA activist Laura Loomer also fueled speculation by publicly raising questions surrounding Lindsey Graham's sudden death. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump paid tribute to Senator Lindsey Graham while admitting he was shocked by the sudden loss. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump, has died at the age of 71. His office released a statement saying he died on Saturday evening following a brief and sudden illness. Graham, a prominent South Carolina politician and close ally of Donald Trump, has long been one of the most influential voices in U.S. politics. He had recently returned from Kyiv, where he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday. Amid the speculation, Laura Loomer made unverified claims about Graham's reported death and raised questions about possible foreign involvement. The right-wing activist also called for an investigation, pointing to recent Iranian threats against Graham. For now, the situation remains clouded by uncertainty, and the most responsible approach is to rely only on confirmed reporting.